Hi, this is Mr. Evans. This video is going to look at the 16 mark evaluation questions that come up, and just like with the last video, you'll probably get more out of it if you've got a pen and piece of paper and you pause the video throughout and just have a little think yourself about how you'd answer some of these questions that I'm going to look at. So 16 mark questions are evaluation questions, and they come up in paper 2 and paper 3. There are evaluation questions in paper 1 as well, worth 25 marks each, and I'll have a look at those in a separate video. So this is the mark scheme, which I forgot to include in the last video I did on analysis questions, but this is what AQA are looking for in a top band answer. You've got a range, a depth and range of knowledge and understanding. You've got analysis throughout. I thought I had more annotations than that actually. But you've got analysis throughout the answer, which is well developed and applied effectively to the context and considers a balanced range of the issues. In other words, both sides of the argument, if that's appropriate. And it makes judgments, provides solutions which show balance and have a clear focus on the question as a whole throughout the answer. So that's what AQA are looking for in an answer that's going to achieve top marks on one of these evaluation type questions. So just a reminder, when you're looking at the question, it's important to understand the instruction, the context of the question, and its focus. The instruction is what skill do you need to demonstrate, whether that be calculation, analysis, evaluation. What's the context, what's the business situation you need to discuss, and the focus is the knowledge that you need to demonstrate. So here's a couple of examples. This one's in the context of Morgan. It's a paper 2 example. Morgan are a car manufacturer. And the question is, do you think for a business to become more innovative, a consultative management style is inevitable? Well, I've said the context is Morgan. In paper 2, remember, you get 3 case studies. So you've got some information about Morgan, which you can use to apply. But the actual question is about a business, not necessarily Morgan. So you will need to discuss a wider range of businesses than just Morgan in order to answer the question. The instruction is to justify your answer. Therefore, you know you need to show evaluation. And you need to link the concepts of being innovative with a consultative management style and build your answer around that. As I say, the context is a business, not just Morgan. This is an example from paper 3. In this example, remember, paper 3 is a case study just based on one business. There's a lot going on here. The context is Sainsbury's. It tells you information about how their gearing has changed and how their current ratio has changed. And you need to evaluate the implications of these changes for Sainsbury's during a period of difficult market conditions and low interest rates. So you need a lot of knowledge here. You need to know what gearing is. You need to know what the current ratio is. You need to know what might be meant by difficult market conditions. You need to know what low interest rates are. And then you need to say, well, are these going to be good or bad for Sainsbury's and why? And then you need to justify your conclusion. This is an example that I'm going to have a look at in a bit more depth, and it might be worth you just pausing this and writing down the question. And the question is to what, it comes from paper 2, and it's to what extent, that's the instruction, you need to explain the extent to which Africa, the context, is an attractive market for all businesses, context, wanting to sell their products internationally. Okay, this is the knowledge that you need. This is the focus of the question. Businesses looking to sell their products internationally. Now, when I've marked these questions in the past, lots of students have talked about manufacturing in Africa or moving their business to Africa. This question is about selling products, and if you know your specification, you'll know that in order to sell products, you can export, you could license companies, you could engage in a joint venture, or you can do direct investment where you actually go and set up a business. But selling the product doesn't mean manufacturing in Africa, it means selling your product in Africa, and that's what the question is all about. Now in paper 2, remember you get 3 case studies, and in order to build your answer, you need to use the data that is provided you. Yes, you can bring in some outside information if you know stuff about Africa. You're very welcome to bring that in, but you also have to discuss the information that's in the case study. And this is the case study that you were given with this question. So you're going to need to use some of the information from this case study. So if you wrote down the question again, it might be worth just pausing the video and thinking about how you would plan the answer to this question in terms of what are the reasons that Africa would be attractive for a business selling its products there, what are the reasons that it wouldn't be attractive, and for which businesses would it be most appropriate. And if you just pause the video and have a look at the information here. And if you've done that and read this stuff, you'll probably realise that most of the data that you can use is in this paragraph here and in this table here. Now, when I planned the answer to this question, here's what I looked at. So we're looking at the extent to which Africa is an attractive market for all businesses wanting to sell their products internationally. Okay, and my very basic plan that I might have scribbled at the top of my essay is that it's attractive because there's a large and growing population and there's economic growth and development. I'm going to need to back that up with some of the statistics that were provided for me here, but that's basically my argument for, and I could summarize this as there's the potential for long-term business growth given these two combined factors of the large and growing population with that's taking place alongside economic growth and development. However, it isn't attractive because, this is where you can bring in some of your own information. The question is actually quite vague. If you think about Africa is absolutely huge. It comprises of a range of countries. We've got South Africa, you've got Botswana in the south, both of which are relatively well developed and developing. You've got countries like Zambia that are exporting a lot of copper, and then you've got some countries that are like the Democratic Republic of Congo, which is war-torn. And you've got countries like Nigeria that sells oil. You've got countries in the north like Egypt, Tunisia, Morocco, which have been holiday destinations for people and are very different from those countries in the south of Africa. So actually, this is a huge question, and you can be a little bit critical of the question and say, well, it's very culturally diverse. You wouldn't just sell your product to Africa, possibly. You might look at different countries within Africa. Using the information in the case study, you'll see that the average annual income is relatively low, and there's a large rural population, which would mean distribution challenges. So they're kind of my 2 paragraph reasons it is attractive, reasons it isn't attractive. And the question is about all businesses. So I need to start thinking as I'm going through these, well, what sort of businesses would it be attractive for? Well, it would be attractive for businesses selling normal goods. This is related to income elasticity of demand, where as incomes go up, demand for those products goes up. We know that there's a large and growing population with the potential for economic growth. Therefore, if I'm selling a normal product in this country, the demand for that product is likely to go up. We know that there's a large rural population, which will make distribution difficult. Therefore, if I've got an easily transportable and distributable good, it's going to be much easier to get that around than maybe something that's like ice cream or something like that. I'm going to, maybe selling standardized goods that don't need to be adapted to suit different cultures. Clothing can differ from culture to culture. Books might need to be translated into different languages. And because of the economic development, construction companies might find it a good place to set up. Looking at, normal goods, easily transportable, standardized goods, I might start thinking about things like toothpaste or underwear, things that are easily transportable, don't need to be adapted terribly, and demand for these goods are likely to go up. Unsuitable businesses, well, maybe businesses selling luxury goods that are hard to store and transport, might not be so successful in selling their products. So a good conclusion to the question will first of all answer the question. So Africa is suitable for some businesses, but not all. That answers the question. The support for that is that there's going to be, we expect future economic development is going to make it an attractive marketplace. Rising average incomes, etc., will make it suitable for many businesses. But in the short term, Africa will not suit all businesses. Remember, in our description of a really top-level answer, AQA have said that a judgment that shows balance. So identifying a problem is that it's not going to suit all businesses in the short term, particularly those ones selling luxury goods like we've mentioned before. So the solution to that problem is that, well, only certain businesses should try and sell in Africa at present, although in the future the growth potential might make the country suitable to businesses selling luxury goods in the long term. So Bentley, Prada, those sort of brands might see future long-term growth in Africa. Now, that's my answer to the question. Here's an example of a response that got a decent mark. So Africa may be an attractive market for businesses to want to sell their product internationally due to the huge population of lots of people, with a population growth of 2.53%. So they started off with a statement. It might be attractive for businesses wanting to sell their products internationally. They've clearly picked up on the keywords in the question, which is sell. They've supported that with a bit of data from the case study, so the examiner knows they're applying their knowledge. And now they explain what that means. It means that businesses have a significant target audience and a potential base of customers. With a population so large, the business can expect economies of scale, which is attractive and gives them opportunities to grow. Even more so, nice use of connective there. This is next point the student believes is even more important. Africa's consumer spending is rising, which means that some countries' GDP will be increasing. This essentially means that consumers are purchasing more, perhaps with more disposable income, which is attractive for businesses as it gives them an indication of the country's spending habits, which is clearly booming. This may allow businesses to determine the price of their products and perhaps volumes, which can help determine a strategy like Porter's generic strategies. I think they've got lost a tiny bit here, but although this success would depend on the type of product. Okay, so they've explained that it's going to depend on the type of product. At the moment, I wouldn't say this answer is above level 3. It's not quite in level 4 yet because we haven't identified the sort of businesses that it would be appropriate for, but they have combined data well. The other side of the argument, they start with a however, which is a good sign to the examiner that you are switching points of view. Africa is home to many different people with interests that may be completely different. The cultural difference may be unattractive as there will be uncertainty in which products will succeed. In relation to Bartlett and Goschel's international strategy, the business will need to consider responsiveness to the locals as well as cost pressure. It's great to introduce this bit of theory here because it shows the examiner that you understand the theory and it's used appropriately in the answer. That's really good to put that in there. So that's going to impress the examiner. The African market is made of many young people, so products should perhaps be aimed at this audience. Now we're getting into a little bit of what sort of businesses it should be appropriate for, talking about the young people. Therefore, not all businesses would see this as attractive. However, it could spark new ideas for potential growth. So they've got into now what sort of businesses it would be attractive for. Now, I still think that this answer is at level 3 because the candidate needs to clearly explain what businesses it would be most appropriate for. Overall, the African market is potentially an attractive market. That's the answer to the question. It's potentially an attractive market due to the population and high consumer spending. So they've supported their answer, which is, if you go back here, what I tell you need to do. Answer the question at the start of your conclusion and support the answer. It would depend on the type of business and product to determine whether this is really attractive. Okay, so this is good. So they're saying what it depends on. High price luxury products may not appeal to the market due to average income and perhaps culture, which means that not all businesses will be successful. Okay, so they said what businesses wouldn't be successful. Most importantly, the attractiveness of business would mainly stem from the type of product and the business. Okay, so they've explained what it depends on and said those sort of businesses that it wouldn't be appropriate for here, which is luxury ones, and they've said products aimed at young people may be quite good. Okay, now if you go back to our plan we looked at, I think this has got more in it. So maybe if you wanted to practice writing an answer in time conditions, maybe use this essay plan. But I can tell you that this answer was awarded 16 marks from AQA in 2017 examination. So the examiner says, fulfills these criteria of a depth and range of knowledge and understanding, analysis throughout, considering a balanced range of issues with a clear focus on the question, has a judgment, providing solutions, and has some balance in their conclusion. So this answer adheres to all of these and achieved top marks.